Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all doing good. This evening, we will be discussing something about depression. We all know what mental illness is. It is a biological disorder and has to do with change of behavior, emotions, and thinking. So this illness can happen to anyone going through a rough time, resulting in anxiety and depression. Believe it or not, most of the characters in the Bible, both men and women, also went through depression. But the Bible does not use the term, depression. Instead, it is normally termed as miserable, broken-hearted, or mourning or despair. So throughout the Bible, there are a number of stories about godly men and women of faith who struggled and battled through dark times of hopelessness and depression. Likewise, many of us find ourselves struggling there today. So let us look into two biblical characters who were in despair. The first one is Elijah. Elijah was discouraged, weary, and afraid. If you look into First Kings, the book of First Kings, you will find his story. Elijah was a prophet, and during his time, the people of Israel were worshipping an idol named Baal. So Elijah, as a prophet of God, he was really disturbed, and he wanted to prove to the people of Israel that there was and is one and only true living God. So he threw an open challenge to the prophets of Baal to see who could bring down fire from heaven to burn the sacrifice. So the prophets of Baal agreed, and they started praying. They even shouted to their god Baal, but nothing happened in spite of them shouting and praying. Now Elijah stepped forward, and he began to pray to God. And as soon as he prayed, there came down fire from heaven, and the fire consumed the sacrifice. So that is how Elijah proved to the people of Israel that, and even to the prophets of Baal, that the one that he worships, the God that he worships, is the only true living God. So his spiritual victory story spread, and it reached the ears of Queen Jezebel, the wife of King Ahab. So on hearing that, Queen Jezebel ordered that Elijah must die. And as a result, Elijah was afraid. He began to doubt his, maybe he began to doubt his faith, and that is how, that is why he went into depression. He was questioning about his faith, and because he felt that he failed God and his people. So he went far away from his country, and he sat down and prayed, feeling defeated. And in 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 4, he says, "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am not better than my ancestors." When he said this, he was almost giving up on his faith. But God God heard his prayers and said and told him that God was with him. He never left him. So that is when Elijah was able to pick himself up, and God asked him to go back to his country and anoint another person to be his next successor. The next biblical character is Job. He suffered through great loss, devastation, and even physical illness. You will find that in John chapter 1 and chapter 2. So it is said that Job was the greatest man of all the people of the East. He had a big number of family with 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. During the biblical times, wealth was measured in terms of cattle and lands. So as a matter of fact, Job was considered as one of the richest men in the East. However, the Bible tells us that Job literally lost everything he had. His family, except his wife, his wealth, and even his health was degrading. He suffered from physical illness, and just in the blink of an eye, he lost everything. But in spite of losing everything, he did not lose his faith in God. He was still clinging on to his faith, in spite of his wife telling him to leave his faith. So, but as a human, he also lost patience, and just when he was about to give up, God intervened in his life, and he was able to pick himself up, and he regained his faith in the Lord. Now, both Elijah and Job had their own share of problems, but at the end of it all, victory was theirs because God was always with them. As a Christian, suffering is must. Suffering is a must, and I believe that that we must go through something in order to grow and learn. And when we suffer, we do not suffer alone. I want you to know that God is in control. People all around the world are going through the same thing, and they are trying their best to overcome things. So kindly know that you are not alone. During this pandemic, if you have lost anybody, if you have lost a friend, a family member, or anyone, remember that God wants us to experience suffering. And that is exactly the reason why sometimes we feel physically and emotionally down. So instead of being angry at God and asking the sovereignty of God, it is advisable to ask God if there is anything He is molding and shaping us into, or if there is anything that He is revealing, or if He is revealing something to us. We may not know the why today, the why of our problems today, but someday we will definitely understand. So instead of asking why, we should ask what. What is God up to? Or what is God trying to do in me? Or what is God trying to reveal? We may not fully understand the purpose of God in our lives, but we know that He will not allow us to suffer into eternity. So yes, this pandemic, so many bad things are happening. Politics is getting dirtier, so many people are dying. You are unable to attend your classes physically, no meetups, no sleepover at your friend's place, and whatnot. This pandemic has taken our joy, our strength, and our source of happiness. So this is the point in our lives where we must realize that true happiness comes from God only. It comes from getting to know Him. It comes from building a rapport with Him. So in a day, try to learn to read one chapter from the Bible and meditate in His Word. Because that is how you will learn to create your happiness. That is how you will learn to find peace. Because the idler we become, the more our mental health is attacked. So even if you're having a troubled heart, I encourage you to talk to a friend, to talk to someone, or ask someone to pray for you, or even feel free to connect with godly people, to surround yourself with godly friends. And remember that even godly people like Elijah and Job suffered a lot. They were at their lowest, but God was there for them through it all. So I want to invite you. I want to invite you to run to God with your burdens, to run to God with your problems. And God Himself, Jesus Himself, has also invited us to come to Him. To come to Him who are weary and burdened, because He will give you rest.